Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. This is one of my favorite times of the year, not only because of the 4 F's of family, friends, food, and football, but also because I believe the practice of Thanksgiving is one of the most important things that we can do because it'll make us much happier, plus make us much more pleasant to be around. And so something I always do at this time of year is put out a video where I share the 10 comics from the past year that I am most thankful that I've added to my collection. Now, something interesting about this past year is that I bought the fewest comics that I've bought since I got back into collecting at the beginning of COVID, but despite that fact, I still picked up plenty that I am super thankful are now in my collection, and I'm going to count down the top 10, beginning with this one, Action Comics number 419, which has this beautiful Neil Adams cover, plus it's the first appearance of the Human Target. And something funny about this book is that I actually bought it to resell it, but once it came in the mail and I saw this cover, I just fell in love with it. And I'm not even a cover guy. I generally don't buy comics because of their covers. But man, I think this is my personal favorite Superman cover. And every time I go to put it on eBay, I'm like, nah, man, that thing just looks too nice. I'm going to keep it. And I have to justify why I won't resell it. And so even though I don't collect covers, I do collect first appearances. So I'm telling myself, oh, really, I'm keeping it because of the first appearance of the Human Target. But I know the truth. Deep down inside, I just can't get over how beautiful this Neil Adams cover is. Now, unfortunately, I am also a hypocrite. So even though I just said that I don't collect covers, there is one exception. I collect Doom covers. Dr. Doom is my favorite character in comics, and so whenever I see one of his covers at a good price, I have to pick it up. And so at number 9 is my favorite Doom cover that I got this year, Fantastic Four number 86, which has this beautiful Jack Kirby cover of Doom just menacingly standing over the Fantastic Four, as they're called, victims. And even though it has nothing to do with this book, something I'm going to mention is that it's been super exciting to see Doom become the Sorcerer Supreme, and I can't wait to see what keeps coming out of that storyline. All right, this is the last cover by that I'm going to show. Oh no, what a hypocrite. At number 8 is the first of the best $2 bin books that I got this year, and I actually picked them up just today, just in time for this video, and it's Marvel Tales number 193, and as you can probably guess, I collect these 25th anniversary Marvel covers, and I've gotten all but a handful of them, and this was one that I didn't have, and pretty much all that I don't have now are like the Star comics, like it's like Muppet Babies and Ewoks, and they're really scarce and hard to find because, of course, the print run on those were a lot lower, and usually it's little kids who got them, so most of them that did survive are pretty beat. But this was one of the regular titles that I did not have, and definitely the last of the Spider-Man titles that I didn't have, and so super happy to pick this up just for $1. And the other dollar bin book that I got today at number 7 is What If Volume 2, number 1. And the reason I love this book so much is that when I first got into collecting as a kid, What If was my favorite title because it just seemed like anything could happen in that title. I remember maybe the first comic that I read when I got back into collecting, it was at least one of the first ones, was What If the alien costume possessed other superheroes or something like that. And it was just crazy for the first time seeing the Hulk possessed with the Venom symbiote. And of course, all these things, a lot of things that happen in What If end up actually happening in the comics at some point. But at that time, that was just crazy. See Thor possessed with the Venom symbiote. And it was just an awesome storyline. Made me fall in love with this title. And so I've always wanted a copy of number 1. I also collect number 1s in general. And so to have the number 1 of one of the titles that really got me into collecting as a young kid is super sweet. and also because the High Evolutionary is one of my favorite villains. So yeah, just this cool cover with him, being highlighted. Also really love and super happy, again, just to pick this up today for $1. Now, coming in at number 6, we have the Avengers number 43, which is the first appearance of the Red Guardian, who's a character that I didn't really care about much growing up, but man, fell in love with him in the Black Widow movie. First of all, David Harbour is just, of course, a great actor. But I think I'm probably the biggest fan of that movie around because I just love the themes of family in it. And that movie was kind of like the movie version of maybe my favorite TV show of all time, The Americans. And in both that TV show and the movie, you have these Russians that are put together in this fake family. But then at least some of the family members choose to love each other. And it really explores this idea of what does it really mean to be a family? And can you actually turn a family that's not a real one into a real one? And I really believe that you can choose to love, that it's not simply just these feelings that are uncontrollable, but you can make choices. And in fact, I'm not advocating for this, but I just think this is a fascinating reality, that the marriage couples that report the highest levels of happiness are marriages where they're arranged. Now, again, I'm not advocating for that, but I think in those cultures, the people understand that they have to choose to love their husband, choose to love their wife, and because of that choice, they end up growing real affection and real intimacy with each other, even though they begin with none at all. And that's exactly what happens in these stories where, the Red Guardian's thrown together with Iron Maiden. I think that's the code name of, his wife, and, of course, the Black Widows. And yeah, there's no real love at all, but he especially chooses to love his wife and his children, and they become a real family to him. And it really hits me in the feels. And so I love this character, super excited to see him in the Thunderbolts movie coming up, and definitely excited to add this book to my collection. Now, speaking of sentimental books, number 5, you might be wondering, well, what in the world is this book about? Well, you can say, it's a cool Spider-Man book. It's Spider-Man number 50. It's got all this 90s holographic gimmick cover. I love my gimmick covers, and so you might think, he loves that gimmick cover enough that it makes it up to number 5. Well, nope, that's not the reason why this makes it number 5 on my list. But the reason it's at number 5 is because a friend of mine was at an antique shop, and he simply knows, my friend Michael likes comics. I see this comic for sale, and I'm going to buy it for him. And so that just really meant a lot to me, that a friend of mine would just be thinking of me, not even for my birthday or for Christmas, just that he was at an antique shop, and he said, hey, I bet he would like it. And so because of that reason, I love this book. I'm really thankful. And that's one of the things I really love, even more as I get older. And even like I said, I haven't really bought as many comics this year. I'm falling more in love, not simply with the comics themselves, but with the stories behind the comics, of collecting. Not the stories of the comics, but the stories of collecting. And stories like this, where a friend just decides to give me this book, really means a lot to me. And at number 4, it's another example of a comic that means more to me than just the comic itself, but how I acquired the comic. And it's Venom number 12, the Stegman variant cover. And I put a video out on this a few weeks ago. I'll link it again in the description below. But the reason I got this comic, it was a part of a mystery box that a friend of mine, Jacob Comics, has been selling to help his family through kind of an emergency situation that they're going through. I'll link the video and you can watch it and learn more about that situation. I bought the box to support him, and it was just a token of course, my friendship to him. And showing that his friendship to me means a lot, and because of that, this book means a lot. If I just saw Venom number 12 on eBay, I probably never would have bought this book. Certainly wouldn't be in my top 10, but because of how I got it, it means much more than a lot of the comics that I wanted, that I bought. It's the stories of collecting that make this hobby so great beyond just the books themselves. All right, now we're going to get into the top 3 books. And at number 3, we have The Monster of Frankenstein, number 2. And I am a huge fan, not simply of horror, but especially of the Universal Monsters Horrorverse. And it's been really exciting to see them put out a lot more books with those characters through Image. But this book is the first appearance of the Bride of Frankenstein in comic books. And it's one of the last Universal horror characters that I didn't have the first appearance of. And so it was just super excited to get this book. It's one that I've been looking for a while. Of course, I'm always looking for a good deal. And at any time, obviously, pretty much any book is on eBay that I could buy this for. But I was looking for a good deal. Finally found one. Super happy to now have this book. And love that movie. We watched it last Halloween. So our family, every Halloween, we're watching like a new classic horror movie. So last Halloween was this one, and the kids really loved it. This year we watched The Blob. I gotta think, is there a Blob type character in comics? I'm sure there has to be. Tell me in the comments below. I'm drawing a blank. He isn't a Universal character, but that would be a cool one to hunt down too if there is some sort of Blob character. All right, at number 2 we have Green Lantern number 29. And this is the first appearance of the Black Hand. And I love this book because I collect the first appearances of villains. And it's so cool to have this book because it's a Silver Age villain. I mean, especially whenever I can pick up the first appearance of a Silver Age villain, I am super excited. And I guess maybe that should vault the Red Guardian issue up because, technically, at least there, he's a villain. I don't really see him as a villain anymore, so maybe I didn't think of when I was making this top 10 list, but maybe we should put that one at number 2 and put everything down. And but we'll keep this one at number 2 for now. So I love any villain, any especially Silver Age villain. But another reason why I love the Black Hand is, I'm sure we've all gone into phases where we've collected for a while, got back out, renewed it. On kind of my first renewal of collecting as an adult. Before this, kind of my third wave at the beginning of COVID. One of the things that really drew me back into comics was the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run. I mean, it just blew me away with the Sinestro Corps War and all the different colored lanterns. And kind of the culmination of that run was the Blackest Night storyline, where, of course, the Black Hand was the main villain. And even though I felt like that storyline ended up being a little disappointing compared to the rest of that massive story that Johns put out, still for that reason the Black Hand became an important character for me. And so to pick up his first appearance, super cool, super sweet. And that finally brings me to number 1. And this is probably the only true grail that I got this year. I mean, some of these are kind of minor grails. But this one is a true grail, a real big boy book, and it's Cerebus the Aardvark, number 1, in a 7.5 white pages. And this is just, arguably one of the most important comics that have ever been put out. This character is a revolutionary character, especially if you're talking about like the Bronze Age on. A super, super important book in comic history. And so to own it is such a privilege and something I'm super thankful for. Now, what's super ironic is that even though this is number 1 in my top 10, it's probably actually the one that most likely will leave my collection at one day. Because there are definitely some other big boy books that I want more. Specifically, as you all know if you watch this channel, Fantastic Four number 5, the first appearance of Doctor Doom. And probably the responsible thing to do when I eventually get my hands on that book is to let go of some of my more valuable books, of course, so it doesn't hurt so much buying that book. And even though I love this book, I don't love it as much as Fantastic Four number 5. And so I'll probably, sadly, let this go at some point. If anyone there is interested, watching this, hit me up on Instagram, and maybe I'll let it go sooner rather than later. Probably not. Probably hold on for a little bit longer. But even though this isn't a long-term hold for me, it's just a really privilege to say that, hey, this was a part of my collection for a couple of years, at least 3-4 years. Who knows how long it'll be until I get the Fantastic Four number 5. But that's something again, with collecting, like, I'm starting to recognize. Obviously the books are important, but just like, I'm holding a piece of history. It's in my home, and I get to have this book and take care of it, preserve it, even if for a while. And hopefully it's obviously something that will help me get books that I even care for more at some point in my life. So those are my top 10. Tell me which one of those books you like the most, or tell me some of the books in your top 10 and down in the comments below. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so now. Like, comment, thank you.